Hello, ladies and gentlemen, dear people. Let us recall the past in order to know the present. Unidentified flying objects have over the years been observed by hundreds of people. The black triangles of the extraterrestrials at the boundary between the second and the third millennium. The documented sightings of unidentified flying objects became so numerous that the phenomenon permanently engaged the attention of scientists and Air Force specialists in a number of countries. Hundreds of examples have been recorded of incredible aircraft shaped like discs or cigars, moving at speeds and accelerations impossible for terrestrial aeronautics, and in recent years there has been talk of an invasion of triangular extraterrestrial flying craft. Hundreds of examples have been recorded of incredible aircraft shaped like discs or cigars, moving at speeds and accelerations impossible for terrestrial aeronautics. The first sightings of the so-called flying triangles were made in the Hudson Valley in the American state of New York in March 1983. Witnesses alerted the authorities to the appearance of flying wings, or V-shaped UFOs. The flying triangle is described by eyewitnesses as a black or gray relatively flat object, about 100 meters wide. Some reports speak of wedge-shaped or boomerang-shaped UFOs. One witness claims that the flying object was so enormous that it filled the sky. During the next 4 years, hundreds of people swore to their relatives that they had seen a similar UFO object in the area. As Sherlock Holmes says in The Sign of the Four, when the impossible has been eliminated, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. Perhaps the moment has come to admit that when it comes to UFOs, the most improbable assumption may turn out to be the truth. Extraterrestrials. Yes, perhaps they are among us. In 1990, strange things appeared in the skies over Belgium, once again bringing the flying triangle into the focus of world attention. At the end of March, the residents of Brussels witnessed one of the most spectacular mass UFO sightings of all time. In 1990, flying triangles appeared in the skies over Belgium. Ufologists emphasize that since November 1989, UFO activity over the territory of Belgium had sharply increased. These are precise reports from reliable witnesses, including scientists, military personnel, and police officers. That is, people who would hardly mistake a conventional aircraft for something different. The majority of reports and photographs refer to a large object over 100 meters in size with a triangular shape. Its appearances were often preceded by a strong glow and magnetic disturbances. The UFOs were capable of incredible acceleration and lightning, fast changes of direction. What exactly happened on the night of March 30, 1990, and in the early hours of the following day? An unidentified flying object appeared, seen by hundreds of people. Reports of the phenomenon were concentrated in the Wavre area, with most eyewitnesses speaking of 3 lights beneath a huge triangular flying object. The object was detected by various radar bases of the Belgian Air Force and NATO. The Belgian armed forces were placed on full combat alert, and an order was given for 2 F-16 aircraft to take off. On June 25, 1976, hundreds of witnesses observed an unusual phenomenon in the sky over Gran Canaria. The object was detected by the Astronomical Observatory in Mallorca. A sensational photograph of a UFO was taken during the mission of the spacecraft Apollo 12. The planes detected the object on their radars and began to follow it. They approached, but suddenly the strange flying body developed an acceleration impossible for terrestrial aircraft and disappeared. A moment later, it appeared almost simultaneously in the skies of different regions, and after a state of rest, it suddenly developed a speed of over 1,000 kilometers per hour. Researchers suggest that the triangle was controlled by an unknown form of intelligence, given the incredible acceleration that would have killed a human crew. Professor of physics at the Free University of Brussels, Leon Brenig, saw and filmed the event with a video camera, after which his film was analyzed by the American Defense Intelligence Services, the DIA. It was some kind of triangular platform with 3 strong lights at the base and a smaller light in the middle. Brenig recalls, the object was flying slowly from north to south, then suddenly changed direction. The rotation was really special. The object did not tilt like normal airplanes. It had an unconventional shape and moved in an unconventional way. I am inclined to believe that I saw an extraterrestrial flying object, but what we need is scientific proof. The press long dissected the case. Specialists from various scientific fields joined the investigations, and the Belgian Air Force sought the cooperation of an international group for ufological research in its attempt to explain the phenomenon. In the official report on the events of March 30 and 31, 1990, Major Lambrechts of the Belgian Air Force emphasized that the UFO appearances had seriously disturbed the authorities. The commander of Special Operations, Colonel Wilfred de Brouwer, acknowledged that authorized government circles had reached the formulation that an unidentified flying object had violated Belgian airspace. These are telling statements, considering that military and government sources usually deny the existence of UFOs. A UFO phenomenon with 18 lights was filmed over the American city of Lubbock in the Texas night sky on August 31, 1951, by Carl Hart, Jr. In March 1990, the Belgian Air Force pursued a UFO. 3 years after the events in Belgium, the flying triangle once again stirred emotions with its methodical appearances, this time in the United Kingdom. Most of the sightings were recorded in the early hours of March 31, 1993. Let us recall that the phenomenon over Belgium was also observed on March 30 and 31. Among the many witnesses, particular attention was paid to police officers and security personnel at military bases. Descriptions of the extraterrestrial flying body were similar to the observations in Belgium. Eyewitness after eyewitness repeated their memories of lights at the corners of a huge triangular UFO. Another characteristic often mentioned in reports of the unexplained triangle was a low background humming sound accompanying the flying body. We will dwell on only 2 of the reports to the special services investigating the phenomenon. One is connected with the military base at Cosford in Shropshire, where an entire platoon observed a UFO passing directly over the base. Frenetic security checks were immediately carried out, and all air traffic control specialists were questioned. But no explanation whatsoever for the flying object was found. It was only established that no aircraft had flown over the area and that the strange triangle seen was of unknown origin. That same night, another sensational sighting was recorded. An officer from the Meteorological Observatory of a British military aeronautics unit in Shawbury, located a few kilometers from Cosford, after receiving a message about the observation at the military base, went outside to examine the sky. To his surprise, he saw a triangular flying object emitting a dull buzzing sound. A bright beam of light extended from the UFO, directed toward the unit's grounds. Then the light suddenly disappeared, and the object slowly passed overhead. The flying triangle moves in such a way that it cannot be likened to known terrestrial technologies, says Nick Pope from the British Ministry of Defence. It is no secret that the British government has been investigating UFO-related cases since 1950, and each year the military structures of the United Kingdom examine over 300 reports of ufological phenomena. Many researchers believe that the military is concealing important information about physical and biological objects of extraterrestrial origin. At first, the military tried to explain the UFO phenomenon through possible manifestations and phenomena from our world. It was established that nearly 90% of UFO sightings could be attributed to terrestrial factors. A series of analyses and checks of aircraft, airship, and weather balloon activity was methodically carried out in cooperation with specialists from the Greenwich Astronomical Observatory. Physical and astrophysical explanations were sought, links of the phenomenon with meteor activity, etc. But the investigations yielded no result. Explanations were also sought in connection with the hypothesis that the flying triangle was a secret prototype of a Russian or American aircraft. There had long been rumors about replacing Lockheed's Blackbird SR-71 with a mysterious supersonic version called Aurora. Specialists from the Belgian Air Force also investigated the possibility that the 1990 flying triangle had been an F-117 stealth fighter, but received categorical assurances that no American aircraft was involved. Secret aircraft are tested in designated zones, and such flights cannot be carried out without agreements between governments. For similar reasons, the British authorities rejected the assumption of a new generation American aircraft. In their attempt to find an acceptable explanation for the events, the defense ministries of the United Kingdom and Belgium conducted a full investigation of the mysterious cases. But the official claims that UFOs are not a threat to people began to sound increasingly uncertain. And while governments found no answer to the questions, the true operators of the mysterious flying object were probably amused by the confusion created. After all, there is an interesting connection between the UFO sightings in Belgium and in England. Both occurred on the night of March 30 and in the early hours of March 31. Stories of flying triangles flooded the world's mass media, But this happened on April 1. Who would pay attention to such reports on the day devoted to jokes? How should we assess this coincidence? Perhaps it is a sign that extraterrestrial intelligence also possesses a sense of humor. A UFO was photographed on April 4, 1950, over the Balearic Islands by Enrique Hosman Müller. The object was rotating, emitting a creaking sound. A frame from a video filmed during the day on August 15, 1993, in Sevastopol by Nikolai Yegorov in the presence of many witnesses. In fact, UFO sightings are reported every day in different parts of the world. Very often, scientists and researchers, military specialists become witnesses of the phenomenon. There is no explanation for the phenomenon. The only fact is that the best pilots and the fastest terrestrial fighters prove helpless in pursuing the mysterious flying objects. And yet, what were these mysterious flying triangles that invaded the skies of Europe? Scientists and military specialists are seeking an explanation for the phenomenon that triggered the combat readiness of the air forces of several countries. Documentary recording. I have it in my sights! I repeat, I have it in my sights! The object is approaching. One moment, the object is moving fast. I'm trying to follow it. I lost it. I repeat, I lost it. The object is gone. The object is gone. I'm trying to catch it again. There, I got it. I'm approaching. I'm approaching. It's gone. The object disappeared. On March 30, 1990, a large triangular unidentified flying object hovered ominously over Glans, a suburb on the eastern outskirts of the Belgian capital Brussels. The flying body was seen by hundreds of people. Its presence was registered by ground radar, and 2 F-16 fighters of the Air Force tracked it. But while the F-16s held the UFO in the sights of their missiles, it seemed to vanish from the sky and was lost over the city lights. The event was extraordinary. Although in the preceding months Belgian airspace had already been violated several times by UFOs. In December 1989, concerned citizens alerted the authorities about a triangular flying body with lights at the corners. According to eyewitnesses, the flying object hovered at a height of 100 meters above the ground and emitted a thin humming sound. Aeronautical services had already several times dispatched their F-16s to find out what was happening in Belgian airspace, and although they could accelerate to speeds of over 2,000 km, the planes arrived too late. The Ministry of Defense took this failure seriously and developed action plans in the event of new incursions by unidentified flying objects. Whether they were friends or foes, whether they came from Earth or from other planets, Belgian defense would not allow anyone to enter its territory uninvited. Belgium has several squadrons of F-16 fighters, always ready to act. During the Cold War, NATO Air Force F-16s regularly engaged in diverting Russian MiGs, testing the reaction time of Western defense. Soviet aircraft were not difficult to detect by radar, and the story resembled an expensive game with deadly potential. Although prepared to a large extent improvisationally, the preventive measures against UFO incursions were better organized. The Air Force Command decided that F-16s could intercept flying saucers and triangles, and suddenly the procedures against UFOs were put to a severe test. During the events of March 30, 1990, the dome, including the complex radar system and squadrons of modern fighters, was pushed to its limits and proved ineffective. The best that the West possessed was not enough to cope with the phenomenon in the skies over Belgium. At about 1100 p.m., the head of the radar station of a military unit on the outskirts of Brussels registered an unknown flying object on the equipment, and at the same time received a telephone call that a triangular UFO was hovering in the night sky over the district. The witness claimed that the flying body had one light at each corner. Calls began pouring into the local police station. Police officers went outside and also saw the object, after which they alerted the relevant services. Soon the first two fighters took off on a hunt for the UFO. The planes dived toward the uninvited guest, and at a distance of 12 kilometers, locked onto it. Fired from that distance, any missile would have hit the target with 100% certainty, but the UFO had no intention of surrendering. When the F-16s approached, the flying triangle deftly jumped out of the targeting field. The pilots, among NATO's most experienced air aces, attempted 6 more times to lock onto the object, 3 times simultaneously detecting it. A combined attack by 2 F-16s would have reduced any flying body to shreds, but the pilots failed to fire a single missile. Whatever entity controlled the UFO used incredible tricks to evade capture. According to one of the pilots, the flying object jumped on the radar screen like a dancing bee. In less than a second, the triangular UFO accelerated from 280 km/h to 1,800 km/h, diving from an altitude of 3,000 m to 1,700 m, after which it abruptly stopped. If anyone had been on board the UFO during the dive, they would have had to endure a load 40 times exceeding the force of gravity. No human being could withstand a load above 8 g. But even under the incredible hypothesis that a human could survive the monstrous acceleration, they would literally have been smashed against the control panel at the moment of the abrupt stop. Therefore, the concern of the F-16 pilots was understandable when they saw that the object set off again as if nothing special had happened. The UFO descended to 200 m above the outer districts of Brussels, after which it disappeared from radar screens, as if merging with the city lights. Meanwhile, on the ground, real chaos was unfolding. Police posts and barracks, radio and television stations, government institutions were flooded with telephone calls. More than 3,000 people reported seeing the UFO. Considering that in England, for example, the number of UFO sightings for an entire year is about 200, one can imagine the panic that arose. Belgium has 70 F-16s, and almost all of them joined the search for the uninvited guests. During the night, there was unprecedented aircraft activity, but the best pilots and the fastest fighters proved useless. The day after the events, the chief of the General Staff of Belgian Aeronautics, General Wilfred de Brouwer, officially expressed the military's dismay at what had happened, and yet a logical explanation of the phenomenon had to be found in order to calm the public. Someone mentioned that the notorious triangles might be meteorological devices, but weather balloons do not dive with such acceleration. Another suggested the hypothesis of a new type of military aircraft conducting secret tests, but no government had requested permission for flight trials in Belgium, and it is rather difficult to explain why secret aircraft would be tested over a densely populated city like Brussels. The assumption that the unknown objects were the result of special effects projected onto clouds was also rejected, because meteorological bulletins for March 30 and 31 indicated that the sky had been clear, which incidentally allowed more than 3,000 people to observe the phenomenon. According to eyewitness accounts, at this site in the forest near the settlement of Delphos in the American state of Kansas, a UFO landed. The ground was scorched, and traces of radiation were detected. And yet, if they were not aerostatic balloons, secret flights, military tests of a new stealth prototype, or projections on clouds, what were they? As Sherlock Holmes says in The Sign of the Four, when the impossible has been eliminated, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. Perhaps the time has come to admit that when it comes to UFOs, the most improbable assumption may turn out to be the truth.